Today we're going to have a conversation about inbound marketing, carrying on the conversation that we started earlier on in the week. So I'm going to kick off with hopefully a relatively simple question. For the benefit of the audience, what are the key ingredients of a sound inbound strategy? Maybe we can go to you first, Christoph.
I think for a sound inbound strategy, you have to have, first of all, a very, very good idea which topics resonate with your audience and currently are developing. And then you need to make sure that you develop the content. We develop content with people in-house, but if you don't do this, develop it with somebody who can really understand the topics, avoid izations, avoid fluff, make sure that you have the right ingredients to cook a good dinner. And if you don't have the right ingredients, be bold and say, don't focus on something just to howl with the wolves. That's a good starting point for good inbound marketing.
Louise?
Yes, I would agree with all of those actually. I think for us it's know your customer, really know who you're aiming at and what they want to hear. And the other part which you said similarly, it's around providing content that sense makes for them. So I think there's a myriad of information out there at the moment, and our job is to really give them something that helps them make a decision rather than just adds to the pile.
I think that's crucial. Step one for me is trying to understand actually what you want to try and achieve. Like what business prerogative are you trying to do? Are you trying to build more awareness as part of your initial activities, or are you trying to move people from one step to another through the funnel? And I think at that point, when you try and understand actually what you're trying to move people in doing and what actions they should take, it then starts becoming a lot clearer about what type of materials and what type of activation campaign you could put together to then enact that in real life.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of obvious, isn't it, that you have to start with the customer, but it's so easy not to. And I think if I had to sum up the kind of real critical ingredient, it's kind of along the lines of what you were saying, but I think the opportunity is to do it as a business, to do it with sales, with the engineering teams, to do it together, to really understand who are the customers that we really care about, that we're actually trying to do something with, whether it's acquire new ones or develop existing ones, and then to really think about what is the kind of content and material that's actually going to resonate with them at their various stages of the journey. Because until you really have taken the time to understand that, probably to dissect it into some kind of persona-based approach, how are you going to architect any kind of inbound strategy that is really going to appeal? So you have to net it out as, yes, start with the customer, but I would say do it as a business, rather than do it in isolation just as marketing.
What I would like to add is also, I think you have to be in the mental framework to figure that good inbound marketing is like the invitation to an inspiring dinner evening. So you don't invite to a dinner evening where nobody has to bring anything to the party, where finally your guest will say, well, I'll never join that party again. So we heard this week, I was in a conversation where somebody said, don't interrupt someone's life if you don't have a good reason. And that's exactly it. If you have something that contributes to a dialogue that makes somebody more intelligent and more knowledgeable, then inbound marketing has a very good starting point. So the engineering, the topics, the strategies, the channels, and that's basically how you lay out the dinner party. But first of all, you have to have inspiring guests.
Actually, and I suppose if I play on the dinner analogy,
it's a good analogy.
Then actually it's people are finding out about there's going to be a really good dinner and they want to come as well.
That's right.
Right? And so how do they have the opportunity to step in? Right? They don't necessarily get invited.
I think it's interesting. It's important, I think, to your point, to make sure that you're in a white space and that the kind of stuff you want to talk about with your customers is something that differentiates yourselves from your competitors. But I also think one of the troubles that we have with that is making sure that's actually true to what you can deliver as a business. So one of the major things is you can promise a white space and a kind of hallowed ground that you own, but if you can't deliver on that with the products and services when they get to you, that's where you come into real difficulty. So I think there's consistency of outbound and inbound and connecting the two, but also then when they get there, they have something really meaningful to get their teeth into.
Well, you build trust every single time, or you lose trust when you do successful inbound marketing. So inbound marketing, although it may be done sort of on a mass scale, it's still a personal exercise. And never forget that.
And to your point, it's around the collaboration as well, isn't it? So internally, it actually helps if we're all aiming for the same goals. So the sales team, the product team, marketing, comms, we all know this is our end goal, this is how we're going to achieve it together. And then the content that we get put out, that's just part of the story.
I do like the point you were making about outbound as well, because one of the opportunities I think is to really truly mix together what is your combined inbound, outbound strategy. How do those two things actually work together? I mean, the days of cold outbound are well and truly over, right? But inbound is a perfect way of bringing almost like a real-time element to when is the right moment to reach out.
Yeah, the brand to demand,
yes,
hallowed kind of holy grail, I suppose, of delivering that. And I think you're absolutely right. The way that a lot of the brands that we work with go to market with their brand activation and the way that they then do demand is often quite different, and being able to connect those two, but also not have inbound led fully by sales or outbound led fully by brand, and having a collaboration between those is what we see as delivering true success.
Yeah.
I'd like to pick on what Louise just said. It's a super important point we have to land here, that the alignment with sales and marketing is such that sales doesn't see marketing just as somebody delivering what kind of a hot lead or anything that's just straight away tangible for sales. They need to understand that marketing is helping them on every step of the journey, and even if it's a very long term journey, in particular inbound marketing is not immediacy marketing. And that's why sales need to understand that it's the careful dance between the personal sale that sales does and the environment, the framework that marketing delivers to give credibility, to give authenticity, and therefore enable a better sale.
I always think of it as, I always think of it as it's the opportunity for sales and marketing to work together in the way that when sales is in front of the customer, great, but also when sales is not in front of the customer, which might be 5 seconds later, right? They've just left, and the next thing that happens is there's a Google search that's starting to check you out, right? But also check what other customers are saying. So this notion that we're actually working together to make sure that there's a consistency of story, of message, and authenticity about what's being said by the sales guy, is backed up by what they see. And
also I think certainly in the advent of kind of digital and people really getting on their game in terms of what content's out there, most customers that come to you, by the time they speak to a salesperson or ever see a salesperson, probably know more about your product than they ever have done. And so that journey to inbound marketing, where they might finally pick up the phone and talk to you, if you haven't already hit all the points that you need to hit from a brand perspective and from your overall product architecture and how you're talking to them, they may have already been disengaged. Even if you finally get to talk to them on the phone, that opportunity may have
I think that's why it's so important to have sales and marketing joined up right at the beginning of that journey. So we're all agreeing, okay, this is the customer, these are their points of interest, this is the problem that they have that they were trying to solve for them. And then we as marketeers, we can put in the right content, we can get them engaged, but then we can't just drop the mic, hand it over, it's over to you now, sales. We have to then say, okay, so we've done this content as per our earlier discussions, so here you go, this is how it links in, these are the threads that you can use to take them back to the discussion about this was your problem, here's the solution, and just help them along the journey as well.
And I think the reason why it's even more important to have that agreement is if you do a very nurturing inbound marketing activity, you're characterizing a certain brand personality of somebody who's willing to share information and give. If you don't have a proper sales alignment, and suddenly you have the customer be in touch with sales, and sales is hardcore, get rid of it, close the deal, then you've got suddenly a divergence between what you nurtured as a personality and what you are. And that's why it's important for us marketeers to always say, look, the sales' job, I have something that I need to get rid of, and marketing is to create a demand for it in the first place. So therefore, if the lead is done very well, sales doesn't have to sell in the classical way. It's just, as you just said, that if the consumer is super informed, just reinforce that and ask where else they need help on the step of their decision, and then it sorts itself out.